Hi, I'm Jackie Fuller, and this is Reflection Post number 5, Infinite Learning, Library as a Place. So this one, more of an academic flavor to it. So I thought about some of the articles that I have read concerning academic libraries and metrics. So, right, metrics, we use them for annual reports, to defend budgets, to secure funding, possibly bring in partnerships and just kind of justify. And it's like, these are the things that we do. It's been quantified. So you can look at things like how many materials were borrowed, how many people came into the library, how many people attended programs. That could be, the deciding factor if a program gets cut or not. Interlibrary loans, non-traditional items, the different types of media, electronic materials, et cetera, et cetera. So academic libraries, one library or one study in particular, and I'm pretty sure I'm mashing 2 to 3 of them, but I'm going to do my best to recall the one is, they call it, universities call it student success. And depending kind of who you ask on campus, the answer might, or the answer may vary. And student success is like, say, for example, you have a brand new student, undergraduate. Do they graduate on time? Do they graduate with, a good GPA? Do they come back for their graduate studies? That is all part of student success. It's kind of like another phrase for lifelong learning in a way. And so there was a study done that tried to just quantify that student success. So it was how it was set up. It was over the course of several years. It followed freshmen. They had them do a digital literacy and how to spot like disinformation, misinformation course. Immediately afterwards, they would take an English composition. And so, in the end, if I recall correctly, there wasn't enough of a difference to say that it really had an impact on retention. However, the students that were taught by the librarians went ahead and over the course of their academic career had higher GPAs. And just with that, like English composition class, it was like in the 94 percentile past that class. The ones that were taught by just a regular instructor fell below 80 or 90%. And it was like, wow. And so that kind of provided a case of like, hey, like here it is in this report, like librarians, academic libraries can help you out. And it also kind of went towards, trying to really get the rest of the faculty to understand that like we can help you. Like we don't want to be talking to, a wall. Here is the proof that we can help you. So if you want to, and it wasn't necessarily like redesign their curriculum, but it's like, hey, if you want us to help kind of like develop and update your courses, like we can do that. Like we can be effective about it. Um, and then this kind of goes into like library as a place. Some of the remodels that were done, and I believe this is from a different study. One university, when they went through their renovation, they actually set up a mock classroom. That was one also. It worked for several reasons. One, librarians can go in and teach things such as digital literacy. They can have guests like speakers come in and be able to teach that. And then also instructors are able to bring their classrooms in. And so then it kind of worked in like multiple ways because it was an alternate location. It brought them into the library. And at the same time, students get that exposure and they're like, oh, hey, there's all these services and this is the library. I know one of the things was, it was like, okay, if you want to get, academic students in through the door at the library, like make that part of the orientation, have them walk into the library, have them sign up for their cards. But yeah, so it all tied into just kind of like that lifelong learning and, the different ways. Some of these libraries also have, digital media labs. So it could be just like right now, instead of like writing a post, I have the option of making a video. And they'll have recording studios, and they'll have the equipment, right? Because sometimes just the access and the cost of things are enough of a barrier, but you have those at the library. The library also, if you're looking at campuses, that is, students either, if we think of, like, they live on campus, they either are at the dorms, the cafeteria, or in their classrooms in the library, whether it's the quad or even the rec center, but the library is one of those third places on campus where they go meet up, hang out, collaborate, study together. So yeah, so it's lifelong learning. So like I said, I like to think of those kind of just the day-to-day metrics as passive, but this is one of those where it's like trying to not so much look into the future, but understanding. And I hate it that we try to quantify everything, but I understand the need for it. And it's just like, no, here are the lifelong lasting impacts. That is that infinite learning. And like maybe that student goes on to, win a Nobel Peace Prize. And there's also things too that they would like track, and it was like, like how many of these students are getting published, and then, in a way that also helps with the, kind of prestige and bragging rights of the university. So, yeah, library as a classroom, it doesn't have to be exactly like an academic library, but there are plenty of different programs that you can teach at the library. I'm a very big believer in teaching really strong foundations and principles. It doesn't have to be about IT and internet security, but, it could be, you look at things like story times, language development, how we learn languages, right? We as babies, we listen and we start to mimic sounds. It might sound like a bunch of nonsense, but that is us trying to learn. And then you have things like letter association and, putting the words together and sentences. And it's just like this whole big development thing, but it starts with having those strong foundations. And, yeah, that enables you to go and read more, be able to sound things out. And I don't know, maybe you win the state spelling bee or national spelling bee. But yeah, it's one of those, it gives you a strong foundation and you just run off into the world and conquer it. And yeah, thank you so much for your time.